Hare Krishna. So today we are on the last chapter of this book, On the Way to Krishna. This book was, as we have seen in the beginning, was based on a lecture of Srila Prabhupada given in 1966. And the four chapters that we have seen, the first chapter is entitled Third Way to Happiness, where Srila Prabhupada talks about temporary happiness that you can get by sense gratification and eternal happiness by connecting ourselves with Krishna. Because we are eternal, God is eternal, and our relationship is eternal. So how do we come about developing our eternal relationship? Chapter 2 describes chanting as the means to clear the dust within the heart, within the minds, right? Chapter 3 then explains that actually realizing Krishna is very natural, it's very easy. So many verses in Bhagavad Gita, which everything we do in our daily life, we can understand or perceive the hand of God behind everything. Chapter 4 mentions that despite knowing all these things, there are two paths, two kinds of people. What is known as the Duskritinas, the unfortunate, the miserlies, and the Sukritinas, those who do good action. So of the Sukritinas, the Jnani is supposed to be the best of all. And in this chapter, Srila Prabhupada is going to continue that next shloka. So let us see. Chapter is entitled Steering Towards the Supreme. It's very nicely titled. The word steering itself shows that there is some sense of voluntary spirit, some sense of independence, some sense of, ability to make one's own judgment. The freedom and free will is shown, the steering towards the Supreme. So Prabhupada begins with this verse, which is a continuation of the Duskritina and Sukritina verse, the very next verse. Udara sarva evete jnani tvatmaiva me matam astita sahi yuktatma mam evanuttamam gatim. All these devotees are undoubtedly magnanimous. All the four kinds of people, Artha, Arthi, Jigyasu, and Jnani. But he who is situated in knowledge of me, the Jnani, I consider to be just like my own self. Being engaged in my transcendental service, he is sure to attain me, the highest and most perfect goal. So, of all the four, the Jnani is most dear. Prabhupada says, here Krishna is saying that all men who come to him, whether they be distressed, Artha, in need of money, Artha Arthi, curious, Jigyasu, are welcome. But out of them, the person who is in knowledge, Jnani, is very dear to him. The others are welcomed because it is understood that in course of time, if they continue on the path to God, they will become as good as the man of knowledge. So why they are known as Sukritinas, but at least because at least they're coming to Krishna for whatever they need. And somehow or other, if they continue, one day they might become elevated and they may become a Jnani themselves. So there's at least they're connected to Krishna in that sense. Generally, however, it so happens that when one goes to church for profit, so again, here Srila Prabhupada is speaking to the Western audience, 1966. So he uses his word church, temple, church, you can say, just to make the people understand. And the money doesn't come. If you go to church for profit, looking for some profit, and the money doesn't come, he concludes that approaching God is nonsense and he gives up all connection with the church. That is the danger of approaching God with ulterior motives. So here Prabhupada says, what is the danger of approaching God for material benedictions? That if your material benedictions are frustrated, if you don't get what you want, you end up just chucking the whole process. For instance, Prabhupada gives an example. During World War II, it was reported that many wives of the German soldiers went to church to pray for their husband's safe return. But when they found their husbands had been killed in battle, they became atheistic. Thus, we want God to become our order supplier. And when he does not supply our order, we say there is no God. That is the effect of praying for material things. So people kind of treat God like a genie, to grant our wishes. And if it doesn't work, then we chuck it. Prabhupada continues. In this connection, there is a story of a little boy, about 5 years old, named Dhruva. So it's a story from Bhagavatam, 4th canto, who belonged to a royal family. In the course of time, his father, the king, tired of his mother and deposed her as the queen. He then took another woman as queen. So the first wife is Suniti, this wife is Suruchi, and she became stepmother to the boy. She was very envious of Dhruva, and one day, as Dhruva was sitting on the father's knee or lap, she insulted him. Oh, you cannot sit on the lap of your father, she said. because you are not born of me. She dragged Dhruva from his father's lap, and the boy became very angry. So, if you read the Bhagavatam story, she does not drag Dhruva from the lap actually. The Dhruva is sitting on the father's lap. The father sees the second wife, Suruchi, and being a little henpecked, he understands that she's not happy. Father pushes the boy off the lap. But in one sense, acharyas like Srila Prabhupada, they have this ability, to see and give the essence of what the pastime is. In one sense, Suruchi's harsh words was as good as dragging Dhruva off the lap of the father by criticizing him and chastising him. So in one sense, it is true. He was the son of a Kshatriya, and Kshatriyas are notorious, very infamous for their quick tempers. Dhruva took this to be a great insult, and he went to his mother, who had been deposed, Suniti. So dialogue begins. Dear mother, he said, my stepmother has insulted me by dragging me from my father's lap. Dear son, the mother replied, what can I do? I'm helpless, and your father no longer cares for me. Well, how can I take revenge? The boy asks. Again, here Dhruva does not actually say revenge in the Bhagavatam. Dhruva says that I want a kingdom greater than my father. I want a kingdom greater than my grandfather. I want a kingdom greater than my great-grandfather. So in one sense, the motive or the desire of Dhruva is to take revenge. He wanted to be better than his father. My dear boy, you are helpless. Only if God helps you, you can take revenge. So yeah, so here, Suniti, she does say that only God can help you, but she also advises him that, do not be envious of others. Do not harbor hate for others. So she, this revenge, what she doesn't say, she doesn't agree to him taking revenge, but she says, do not harbor envy. But at the same time, this is the essence of the pastime. That she's saying that only God can fulfill whatever desires you want. Oh, where is God? Dhruva asked enthusiastically. I understand that so many sages go to the jungle and the forest to see God, the mother replied. They undergo great penance and austerities in order to find God there. At once, Dhruva went to the forest and began asking the tiger and elephant, oh, are you God? Are you God? So again, at least there's no description like Dhruva asking the animals, but it does portray that Dhruva was very, very inquisitive. Dhruva was searching. Actually, he was so eager, so fixed. In this way, he was questioning all the animals. Seeing that Dhruva was very much inquisitive, Sri Krishna sent Narada Muni to see about the situation. Narada quickly went to the forest and found Dhruva. My dear boy, Narada said, you belong to the royal family. You cannot suffer all these penance and austerities. Please return to your home. Your mother and father are very much anxious for you. Please don't try to divert me in that way, the boy says. If you know something about God, or if you know how I can see God, please tell me. Otherwise, go away and don't disturb me. When Narada Muni saw that Dhruva was so determined, he initiated him as a disciple and gave him the mantra, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Dhruva chanted his mantra and became perfect, and God came before him. My dear Dhruva, what do you want? You can take from me whatever you want. My dear Lord, the boy replied, I was undergoing such severe penances simply for my father's kingdom and land, but now I have seen you. Even the great sages and saints cannot see you. What is my profit? What is my benefit? What did I gain? I left my home to find merely some scraps of glass and rubbish, and instead I found a very valuable diamond. Now I'm satisfied. I have no need to ask you anything. Swamin kritatosmi varam nayache. I do not want any other benediction. So Dhruva will explain that, I was like as if searching for pieces of glass, all these material desires. And what I got your darshan, which is like a diamond. Thus, even though one may be poverty-stricken or in distress, if he goes to God with same determination of Dhruva, intent on seeing God and taking his benedictions, and if he happens to see God, he will no longer want anything material. So we may have our desires, but at the same time, the focus, if it's not on the desire, it's on seeing God to fulfill my desire. When we actually achieve Lord, or we actually approach Lord, then that itself may sometimes be so amazing that we may forget the desire. He comes to understand the foolishness of material possessions, and he puts the illusion aside for the real thing. When one becomes situated in Krishna consciousness like Dhruva Maharaj, he becomes fully satisfied and does not want anything. The Jnani, the wise man, knows that material things are flickering. he also knows that there are three aspects that complicate all material gain. Very nice, Prabhupada. Three things which make material life very complicated. Oh, material profit. One, one always wants profit from one's work. One is always looking, what can I get out of it? What can I get out of it? One wants adoration from others because of his riches. What's the use that if you have so much money and nobody likes you, nobody is with you? Third, one wants fame because of his wealth. You want to be known, right? So this is a constant struggle that a person will always try to get something out of something, always expecting adoration from others, always expecting fame, right? And in expectation, there's always frustration. In any case, he knows that all these apply but to the body, and that when the body is finished, they also go. All material wealth, adoration, fame. When the body dies, one is no longer a rich man, but a spirit soul. And according to his work, he has to enter another body. It's a very powerful, interesting line. So if any rich person you think, the moment they die, they're nothing. They're no longer a rich person. They're just a soul, like everyone else. The Gita says that a wise man is not bewildered by this, for he knows what is what. Dhiras tatra na muhyati. Second chapter, 13 verse, Bhagavad Gita. Why then should he bother himself in attaining material wealth? So a smart guy thinks that I'm nothing to do with this body. Why should I work so hard to get material wealth? His attitude is, I have an eternal connection with Krishna, the Supreme Lord. Now let me establish that relationship firmly so that Krishna will take me back to his kingdom. So this is actually the reality of this world. All kinds of, factories and conglomerates and businesses and all this and that. Actually, they are not needed, right? The goal of life is that one should actually develop one's Krishna consciousness and go back. There's no point in earning or creating or developing. The cosmic situation is giving us all facility to re-establish this relationship with Krishna and return to Godhead. The entire universe is made in such a way, packaged in such a way that we can practice and develop Krishna consciousness and go back home back to God. Nothing else is needed. This should be the mission of life. How is the cosmos, how is the universe helping us? Prabhupada explains. Everything we need is being supplied by God. Land, grains, fruits, milk, shelter, and clothing. Everything is given. We only have to live peacefully and cultivate Krishna consciousness. Right? One has to be peaceful and cultivate Krishna consciousness. That should be the mission of life. We should therefore be satisfied with what God has supplied in the form of food, shelter, defense, and sex, and should not want more and more and more. Right? So there's an expectation of people say that earth can provide for a man's needs, but not for a man's greed. Isn't it? What a man needs, earth can supply, but what a man is greedy after, that earth cannot supply. So these are the simple things that we get, and one should be satisfied whatever one gets. The best type of civilization is one that ascribes to the maxim of plain living and high thinking. It is not possible to manufacture food or sex in a factory. Basically, Prabhupada is saying the basic necessities of life, you cannot manufacture in any factory. So there's no point of factories. They are just artificial needs being created. These and whatever else we require are supplied by God. Our business is to take advantage of these things and become God conscious. Although God has given us all facilities to live peacefully on this earth, cultivate Krishna consciousness, and finally to come to Him, in this age we are unfortunate. We are short-lived. There are so many people without food, shelter, married life, or defense from the onslaughts of nature. This is due to the influence of the age of Kali. So this is coming from a verse in Bhagavatam. I like it how all this while Srila Prabhupada has been quoting Gita verses, and now he's like kind of introducing us to Bhagavatam with Dhruva story and then this verse now. So the shloka comes in the first canto, first chapter, 10th verse. Prayena alpayusha shabdya kalau asmin yuge jana manda sumanda matayo manda bhagya upadrita. 5 lakshan, 5 qualities of a person in KaliYuga. Alpa ayusa, short-lived. Okay. Mandaha, lazy. Sumanda matayo, misguided. Manda bhagya, unfortunate, unlucky. Upadrita, disturbed. So people in KaliYuga have very short lives, 60, 70 years. We hear people dying at 20 years old, 40 years old, right? Someone at the age of 25 gets a heart attack and dies. So alpa ayusa, life is very short, so limited. Now let's say someone says, no, I have a very long life. Okay, no problem. Even if you have a long life, then your mandaha person is very lazy, pass the time doing nothing practically. Let's say a person has a long life and is not lazy, very active. Sumanda matayo, the person becomes misguided, starts doing all kinds of other nonsense things, which doesn't benefit oneself. Let's say a person has long life, very active, and is properly guided. Manda bhagya, very unlucky, unfortunate. May not get a guru, may not get a mantra, may not get, something is very unlucky, unfortunate. Let's say a person has long life, very active, on the right path, has all facilities. Upadritaha, he's always disturbed. As we hear, mental illness is the biggest problem now in this age. So a person is totally always creating own demons, creating own issues within the mind, and feeling very frustrated, feeling very disturbed. So upadritaha. Therefore, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, seeing the dreadful situation in this age, emphasized the absolute necessity for cultivating spiritual life. How should we do it? Chaitanya Mahaprabhu gives the formula. Harer Nama, Harer Nama, Harer Nameva Kevalam, Kalau Nastyeva, Nastyeva, Nastyeva Gatir Anyatha. Just always chant Hare Krishna. Never mind whether you are in a factory or in hell, in a shack or in a skyscraper. So here's an American word, shack. Right? Shack is like a small hut kind of thing. There's a nice line Prabhupada says, wherever you are, it does not matter. Just go on chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. There is no expense, right? There's no cost to this. There is no impediment. Nothing will happen to you. There is no caste, no creed. There is no color. Anyone can do it. Just chant and hear. Somehow or other, if one comes in contact with Krishna consciousness and executes the process under the guidance of a bona fide guide, he is sure to go back to Godhead. So this is like the qualifier. Come in contact with Krishna consciousness and be guided by a guide, bona fide guide. So Prabhupada says, how rare is it, this Krishna consciousness? Bahunam janmanam ante jnanavan mam prapadyate vasudeva sarvamiti samahatma sudurlabha. After many, many births and deaths, Bahunam Janmanam Ante, he who is actually in knowledge surrenders to me, Jnanavan Mam Prapadyate, knowing me to be the cause of all causes, Vasudeva Sarvamiti, such a great soul is very rare, Samahatma Sudurlabha. Philosophical research into the science of God has to be prosecuted for many births. So on our own endeavor, trying to understand God may take us lifetimes after lifetimes. God realization is very easy, but at the same time, it is very difficult. Right? God realization is very easy. At the same time, it is very difficult, Prabhupada says. It is easy for those who accept Krishna's word as truth. One accepts Bhagavad Gita, done. But those who try to understand through research work by the dint of advancement of knowledge have to create their faith. Nice word, Prabhupada is. Have to create their faith after finishing so much research work. This process may take many births. So we are not creating our faith, we are kind of like borrowing. We're seeing the faith of Srila Prabhupada and seeing the faith of all the acharyas and other senior Vaishnavas, and we are lending on that faith. It's easier than trying to create our own faith within the heart. Right? Taking that faith is easier. Accepting. There are different types of transcendentalists called Tattvavit who know the absolute truth. The transcendentalists call the absolute truth that in which there is no duality, absolute truth, right? There is no duality in it, like hot and cold, happiness and sadness. In the absolute truth, there is no duality. Everything is on the same level. One who knows this truth is called a Tattvavit. Krishna proclaims that the absolute truth is known in three aspects: Brahman, Paramatma, Bhagavan. Again, another Bhagavatam verse, first canto, second chapter, 11th verse. Vadanti tat tattvavidas tattvam yajnanam advayam Brahmeti, Paramatmeti, Bhagavaniti Shabdyate. So learned transcendentalists, they know, the Tattvavidas, they understand God to be three features: Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan. The impersonal Brahman effulgence, the Brahmajyoti Brahman, the localized supersoul, Paramatma, and the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Bhagavan. Thus, there are three angles from which one may envision the Supreme Absolute Truth. One may, so Prabhupada gives some example to understand this. So Lord is an absolute truth which can be seen from three facets. One may view a mountain from a great distance and thus perceive it from one angle of vision. As he comes closer, he may see the trees and foliage of the mountain. And if he begins to climb the mountain, he will find so much variegatedness in the trees, plants, and animals. The objective is same, but due to different angles of vision, sages have the different conceptions of the absolute truth. So there's only one objective, which is actually in this mountain example, which is actually approach the mountain, approach God. But according to different understandings, one sees it in different ways. So this is one example. Then Prabhupada gives another example. There is sunshine, the sun disk, and the sun god. One who is in the sunshine, like the Brahmajyoti, cannot claim that he is on the sun itself. And one who is situated in the sun is, from the viewpoint of vision, better situated, better than the sunshine guy. The sunshine may be compared to the all-pervasive Brahmajyoti effulgence, and the localized sun disk may be compared to the localized aspect of the supersoul, and the sun god who resides in the sun may be compared to the personality of Godhead. As on this earth planet, we have multi-variety of living entities. We can understand from Vedic literatures that in the sun also there is a variety of living entities. So these are the two common examples Prabhupada gives to understand this Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan. In India, they give another example usually of a train, right? So a train comes from far, you see it's just smoke and sound. But when you come near, you see it's a big metal box, right? That's like Paramatma realization. So from far, you just see the Brahmajyoti, the light of it, some light and some smoke and some sound, right? Everything is hazy, but you know something is coming. And when it actually comes, the localized aspect, the localized form of it is actually the metal box. And when one goes in, one sees so many exchanges and varieties, pantries and sitting places and lavatories and this and that. So that's like Bhagavan aspect, understanding there's no thing to it. Then Prabhupada says that in the sun also there's living entities, but their bodies are made of fire, just like ours are made of earth. So scientists also have found out fire bacteria which live in fire. So they have a fiery body, just like fishes have a watery body. We have an earth body. In material nature, there are 5 gross elements: earth, water, air, fire, and space. Bhumir, Apo, Nalo, Vayu, Kham. In different planets, there are different atmospheres due to the oneness, due to one of these 5 elements prevailing, that means predominating. And there are different bodies for the living entities composed of whatever element may be predominant in a particular planet. So this world is called Earth. Somehow or other, I don't know, so amazing, because the predominant element in this planet is Earth. We should not think that all planets have the same quality of life. Yet there is uniformity in the sense that all these 5 elements are present in some form or other. Thus, on some planets, Earth is prominent, right? Like this planet Earth. Fire is prominent, like sun. Water is prominent, like the moon. And air and space are prominent, like some other planets, Uranus and Mercury. We should not think, therefore, that just because a planet is not composed primarily of Earth, or because the atmosphere does not duplicate ours, that there is no life on these planets. Vedic literatures give us information that there are countless planets filled with living entities with different types of body. As by making some material adjustment, we may qualify to enter into different material planets, right? So material adjustment, for example, I put on a scuba suit, I can enter into the water. By qualification, we can enter into the spiritual planet where the Supreme Lord resides. So I put on some qualifier, I get some qualification and I can enter into the spiritual world. Yanti deva vrata devan pratin yanti patrarvataha bhutani yanti bhuteja yanti madhyajino pimam. Those who worship the demigods, they go to the demigods. Those who worship the Pitru, the ancestors, they end up with the Pitrus. And those who worship the Supreme Lord, Krishna, end up with Krishna. Those who are trying to enter higher planets can go there. And those who are trying to qualify to enter into Goloka Vrindavan, the planet of Krishna, can also enter there by the process of Krishna consciousness. Before going to India, here Prabhupada is speaking to Western audience, we may acquire a description of what the country is like. Hearing about a place is the first experience. Similarly, if we want to get information about the planet where God lives, we have to hear. We cannot immediately make an experiment and go there, right? You can't just say like, okay, let me just get on a plane and go somewhere. I do not know about the name of the place, how can I even go there? So sometimes people say, that, oh, after death, I will be Kailash Vasi, I will be Swarga Vasi. But when you have no information, where is that Kailash, what is that Swarga, how will one go there? But we have so many descriptions of the supreme planet in Vedic literature. For instance, Brahma Samhita, the praise of Lord Brahma, he says, Chintamani prakara satma sukalpa vriksha laksha vritesu surabira vipalayantam Lakshmi sahasya chatasham brahmasevyamanam Govindam adi purusham tamaham bhajami. I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, the first progenitor, who is tending the cows, Surabhi Ravipalayundam, fulfilling all desires in abodes built with spiritual gems, Chintamani, surrounded by millions of wish-fulfilling trees, Satma Sukalpa Vriksha, always served with great reverence and affection by hundreds and thousands of Lakshmis or Gopis, Lakshmi Sahasrashata. There are also other detailed descriptions given, especially in the Brahma Samhita. Those who are trying to realize the absolute truth are categorized according to the aspect of the absolute truth on which they concentrate. Okay? Those who concentrate on Brahman, the impersonalists, are called Brahmavadis. Generally, those who are trying to realize the absolute truth first of all realize the Brahma Jyoti. Those who concentrate on the super soul, the localized form of the Lord in the heart, called Paramatma, are known as Paramatmavadis. The Supreme Lord, by his plenary portion, is sitting in everyone's heart, and by meditation and concentration, one can perceive this form. Not only is he sitting in everyone's heart, but he is situated within every atom of the creation. So even in modern science, if you see atomic structure, physics, right, they say that inside the atom, there is energy. There are neutrons, electrons, protons, everything moving around, moving around. They say, how does it vibrate? How do atoms vibrate? How do they move? There's some energy that makes it spin. So they do not know what energy this is. But we have information that within atoms, between both atoms, Lord is always there. That's why this world is even existing, because of Lord's presence. This Paramatma realization is second stage. The third and last stage is the realization of Bhagavan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Because there are three main stages of realization, the Supreme Absolute Truth is not attained in one birth. It's not easy, right? To understand God, you have to understand step by step. Bahunam Janmanam Ante. So, if one is fortunate, he can achieve the ultimate in 1 second. But generally, it takes many, many years and many, many births to realize what God is. So again, from here, we can reflect our great good fortune, getting the mercy of Srila Prabhupada. He came to give something so clear. He came to explain who God is, what God is, and to give us this understanding. What would naturally or generally take many births to understand, someone from zero can actually get distinction, A+, just because of the mercy of Srila Prabhupada. Then he made it so easy. So Krishna says, Aham sarvasya prabhavo mattah sarvam pravartate iti matva bhajante mam buddha bhava samanvitah. I am the source of all spiritual and material worlds. Aham sarvasya prabhavo. Everything emanates from me. Mattah sarvam pravartate. The wise who perfectly know this, iti matva bhajante mam, engage in my devotional service. Buddha bhava samanvita, and worship me with all their hearts. The Vedanta Sutra also confirms that the absolute truth is He from whom everything is born. If we truly believe that Krishna is the origin of everything, and if we worship Him, our whole account is closed in 1 second. What is the account here? Not bank account, don't worry. This is our karmic account, material life account. Everything is closed in 1 second. If we actually accept and believe Krishna's words. But if one does not believe and says, oh, I want to see what God is, he has to go by stages, by realizing the impersonal Brahman effulgence and then Paramatma, the localized feature, before finally coming to the last stage of realizing, oh, here is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So someone says that I want to see God, then you have to go through all the processes, very slow. It should be understood, however, that this process takes more time. When one through many years of research comes to realize the absolute truth, he concludes, Vasudeva Sarvamiti. Vasudeva is all that is. Vasudeva is the name of Krishna and it means he who lives everywhere. Sarvavasam iti Vasudeva, one who lives everywhere. Realizing that Vasudeva is the root of everything, Mam Prapadyante, he surrenders. The surrendering process is the ultimate goal. Either one does it immediately or after many births of research work. So choice is ours. right? Whether one accepts this and does it immediately, try in this very life, or one takes many more births and keep. But ultimately, if one wants to come to this stage, then one has to surrender. In either case, surrender must be there by realizing that God is great and I am his subordinate. Understanding this, the wise man will surrender immediately and not wait to take many, many births. He understands that this information is given by the Supreme Lord out of his infinite mercy on the conditioned souls. We are all conditioned souls suffering the threefold miseries in this world. Now the Supreme Lord is giving us the opportunity to escape these miseries by the surrendering process. Right. So Krishna is so kind. No? Still we are so like dullards. We don't want to surrender. At this point, one may ask that if the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the ultimate goal and one has to surrender to him, why are there so many different processes of worship in the world? This question is answered in the next verse. Why are there so many different methods of worship? Kamaistaistaihritagyana prapadyantenya devatah tam tam niyamam asthaya prakritya niyatasvaya. Those whose intelligence have been stolen by material desires surrender unto demigods, the Anya Devatas, and follow the particular rules and regulations of worshipping according to their own natures. There are many different types of men in the world, and they are functioning under the different modes of material nature. Generally speaking, most men are not after liberation, right? Nobody's so much interested to come out of the material world. If they take to spirituality, they wish to gain something by spiritual power. It is not uncommon in India for a person to go to a Swami and say, Swamiji, could you give me some medicine? I am suffering from this disease. He thinks that because the doctor is too expensive, he can go to a Swami who can do miracles. In India also, there are Swamis who go to people's house and preach. If you give me 1 ounce of gold, I can make it into 100 ounces of gold. The people think, oh, I have 5 ounces of gold. Let me give it to him and I will get 500 ounces. In this way, the Swami collects all the gold in the village, and after collecting it, he vanishes. This is our disease. When we go to a Swami or a temple or a church, our hearts are filled with material desires, wanting some material profit out of spiritual life. We practice yoga just to keep our health fit. That's again another exploitation. But in order to keep healthy, why take shelter of yoga? We can become healthy through regular exercise and regular diet. Why resort to yoga? Because kama is taistair jnana. We have the material desire to keep ourselves fit and enjoy life by going to church and making God our order supplier. So purpose of yoga is actually to link with God. It's supposed to, regulate the senses so that we can focus on God. But people are using it to become healthy. So they're using God as our order supplier for our own desires. Having material desires, men worship various demigods. They have no idea how to get out of matter. They want to utilize the material world to its best capacity. For instance, in the Vedic literature, there are so many recommendations. If one wants to cure his disease, worship the sun. Or if a girl wants a good husband, she worships Lord Shiva. Or if one wants to become beautiful, he worships such and such god. Or if one wants to become educated, he worships goddess Saraswati. In this way, Westerners often think that Hindus are polytheistic. There are many gods. But actually, this worship is not to God, but to demigods, the devatas. We should not think that the demigods are God. God is one, but there are demigods who are also living entities just like us. The difference is that they have considerable amount of power. They are empowered beings. On this earth, there may be a king or a president or a dictator. These are men like us, but they have some extraordinary power. So Prabhupada is giving, if you think how to understand demigods or devatas, they're like kings or very big dictators or presidents. They are normal human beings or living entities like us, but they have a lot of power. And in order to get favors from them, to take advantage of their power, we worship them in one way or another. But the Bhagavad Gita condemns the worship of the demigods. This verse clearly states that those people worship the demigods due to their karma, material lust. This material life is simply based on lust. We want to enjoy this world and we love this material world because we want to gratify our senses. This lust is a perverted reflection of our love of God. In our original constitution, we are made to love God, but because we have forgotten God, we love matter. There's a nice thing. Original constitution is that we are supposed to love God, but because we have forgotten God, we're starting to love matter. Love is there. Either we love matter or we love God. But in no case can we get out of this loving propensity. Somehow or other, we need to love something. Indeed, we often see that when one doesn't have children, he loves a cat or a dog. Why? Because we want and need to love something. In the absence of reality, we put our faith and love in cats and dogs. Love is always there, but it is distorted into the form of lust. When this lust is baffled, we become angry. When we become angry, we become illusioned, and when we are illusioned, we become doomed. So this is a verse of Bhagavad Gita also. Dhyayato vishayan pumsa sangaste supajayate sangat sanjayate kama kama krodha vijayate. Krodhodbhavati sammoha sammoha smriti vibrama smriti brimshat buddhi nasho buddhi nashat prashnashyati. 8 steps of fall down. This is the process that is going on, but we have to reverse this process and turn lust into love. If we love God, we love everything. But if we do not love God, it is not possible to love anything. We may think that it is love, but it is simply a glamorized form of lust. Very nice. Those who have become the dogs of lust are said to have lost all good sense. Kames taistya hritadhyana. There are many rules and regulations for the worship of the demigods in the scriptures, and one may question why the Vedic literatures recommend their worship. So, if worshipping the demigods is supposed to be a form of us exhibiting our lust, then why even give that facility? Why even have demigods? Then might as well just everyone try to worship the Supreme Lord. Prabhupada says there's a necessity. Those who are motivated by lust want the opportunity to love something, and the demigods are acknowledged as the officers of the Supreme Lord. They are the bona fide mediums, right? Someone does not want to surrender to God, they just want to get their work done. So they go to these officers, right? The idea is that as one worships the demigods, he will gradually develop Krishna conscious. So the point is that why these devatas are there? So at least by worshipping them, slowly, surely, one day or another, one will become a devotee. But if one is completely atheistic and disobedient and rebellious against any authority, what hope is there? So one's obedience to a higher personality can start with the demigods. So at least there's some regulation, principle, austerity, this and that, right way that slowly, slowly purified one can actually become devotee. If, however, we take directly to the worship of the Supreme Lord, worship of the demigods is not necessary. So one who's already worshipping the Supreme Lord, worship of the devatas is not necessary. Those who worship the Supreme Lord directly show all respect to the demigods, but they do not need to worship them because they know that the supreme authority behind the demigods is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and they are engaged in worshipping Him. Like we give that example, no? If you want to get a loan, you go to the bank officer, you submit the documents to the clerks, and they will pass it through the channel. But if let's say one already knows the bank manager personally, and the bank manager calls directly to his office and passes the papers, then definitely one will get it. One does not need to go through the tellers or the clerks. In any case, respect is there. A devotee of the Lord shows respect even to an ant, what to speak of the demigods. So we may not need to worship the devatas, but we should respect them nonetheless. The devotee is aware that all living entities are part and parcel of the Supreme Lord and that they are playing different roles only, right? The devatas are just simply playing different roles. In relation to the Supreme Lord, all beings are to be respected. Therefore, a devotee refers to others as Prabhu, meaning, my dear sir, my Lord. Submissiveness is a qualification for a devotee of the Lord. Devotees are kind and obedient, and they have all good qualities. In conclusion, if one becomes a devotee of the Lord, all good qualifications will automatically develop. By nature, the living entity is perfect, but due to the contamination of lust, he becomes vicious, right? So lust is the nature which makes us a little selfish and little cruel. We become vicious. That which is part and parcel of gold is also gold, and whatever is part and parcel of the complete perfect is also perfect. Om Purnam Madah Purnam Midam Purnat Purnam Mujachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. The personality of Godhead is perfect and complete. Because he is completely perfect, all emanations from him, such as this phenomenal world, are perfectly equipped as a complete whole. Whatever is produced of the complete whole is also complete in itself. Because he is complete whole, even though there are so many complete units emanate from him, he remains the complete balance. Ishopanishad. So spiritual mathematics, 1 minus 1 is still 1. When the Lord expands, everything is perfect. He remains perfect. He doesn't diminish. Due to the contamination of matter, the perfect living entity falls down. But this process of Krishna consciousness will again make him perfect. Through it, he can become truly happy, and after leaving the material body, enter into the kingdom where there is eternal life, bliss, and full knowledge. Satchit Ananda. So like this, we complete reading this book On the Way to Krishna, and we'll start our new book reading next week. Hare Krishna.